So, oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday night team training. And if you don't know me, I'm Jillian House, Diamond Leader with It Works. And we are super excited to announce that we have Meredith Tieszen here tonight. She's a Chief Sales Officer from It Works Corporate, and we are very excited to have you here tonight. So thank you so much for hopping on with us.
I am so excited. Thank you guys so much for having me, Shannon. I hope you feel better. Um, Thank you again for inviting me on.
Awesome. Yeah, so Meredith, I've heard you speak before at our Rank Up retreat in the summer. I was actually totally blown away. You shared with us at that point because I had never really heard you talk about much as far as the business, mainly just with the corporate stuff, right? So it was very helpful for me personally, and I think that something that we'd like to discuss tonight that is going to hopefully resonate with everyone is about their own business and what is going to make them a business versus an employee, because you're not an employee anymore once you start your own business with the work. And so if you're able to touch on some of the dedication, time, responsibilities that you have as a business owner rather than an employee, and share some of your wisdom with us, that would be amazing. And yeah, so if you want to just kind of go ahead and maybe share a bit about what kind of you've done with the company so far and introduce yourself a bit, that would be great.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for having me on. For those of you, so I kind of know a little bit of who's who in the zoo. Share with me if you've heard me talk before, if you've heard my story, drop a one in the chat. I'm going to ask you guys to participate by utilizing the chat. So drop a one in the chat for me if you've heard my story. If you haven't, just give me a high five, like tell me, hey, who are you again? That's totally fine. Just go ahead and do that. Because I want to kind of get an understanding of who's here. And then also I'm going to get to the question here in a minute. Thank you, Joy. I love seeing new people on that I haven't spoken to yet. I also want to ask, I want you to drop in the chat, what are you running for this month in the month of October? Okay. So maybe there's some new people on. Maybe you're running for your first 4-in-1. Maybe you're running for Ruby. Maybe you're running for Diamond. Whatever that is, I want you guys to drop it in the chat and I want you to totally own it, like publicly, right? It's October 18th. There's still a lot of month left. So we're going to own it. Wow. Okay, Shannon, you've got some big goals there, girl. I love that. So many exciting things. I want to share Rebecca, welcome 6 weeks in. I love that you're 6 weeks in and you're heading towards Ruby. I think that is amazing. Okay, here's what I want to share. I want to share a little bit of my background and then I'm going to get to some of these questions. But I want to share a little of my background so that you guys know, did she just read this out of a book? No, I did not. I went to the School of Hard Knocks. That's what my dad always says. I grew up moving around a lot, but I claim that I grew up in Montana. But we had moved 30 times by the time I was 20. And that taught me a lot. On top of that, I also grew up in this channel. I started my own direct sales company in my early 20s. And so I've been in this channel for a couple of decades. I'm holding out on saying a few. I've got a couple more years before I start claiming 3 decades. But I've been in this channel for quite a long time in direct sales. And I've been on both sides. I've had the great fortune of being very similar to Mark and Cindy. I actually started my company about the exact same time that they did in early 2000s. And so I remember seeing them at all of the events. But started my company very young age, didn't know what I didn't know, but that was also a blessing in disguise. And I have worked for myself. I have been on the field side. I have worked for billion-dollar brands that as household names. And I've worked for companies you will never hear of. Definitely, you will never hear of the company that I helped start 15 days before a global pandemic. Like that was a great life lesson. But I've been there and done that. And so I share that because as I get into some of these questions, I want you to understand I know how it feels to be in the field side and some of the things that you'll go through. Most recently, I was in the field in 2018, was growing a very successful business in the field when I got the opportunity to start a company with a couple of mentors of mine. And it was something that I was like, man, this is a once in a lifetime. And like I said, a global pandemic happened. But here's the thing is that my journey led me to here. And this was truly what I've been looking for at It Works. And so it was actually just a very God thing. With that being said, Jillian, you mentioned, and it is Jillian, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You mentioned something so great because yes, you aren't an employee. You, as an independent distributor, right? You come in and you're like, okay, I've got this great vehicle, but I'm going to ask this question. Even the newest person, right? Rebecca, you're like, I'm 6 weeks in. Do you guys remember when you hit like the send button to get your BBK? And was there a part of you that was kind of like, oh, what did I just do? You were kind of excited, you were nervous. If that was you, like it couldn't have just been me, but if that was you, like drop me a 100, like you feel what I was feeling, like you wanted to tell everybody and yet you wanted to tell nobody all at the same time, right? It was just like that little bit of like, that nervousness. At that moment, it probably also kind of became real of like, man, I started something that I get to decide. And that's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing too, because sometimes we leave the things, especially ladies. Now, I don't know if there's a few good men on here, there might be, but especially ladies, I find that if it is for us, we'll put it on the last back burner because we're always trying to do for others. We're always trying to make sure everybody else is always taken care of. And so I love the question of like, okay, how do you find the dedication? Where do you find the time? Like, how do you manage yourself when you're not an employee, knowing that this can do more for you, but how do you kind of like take that leap, if you will? And I found for me, I was in a situation when I started in direct sales. I was in a situation of I grew up in, I like to say Podunk, Montana, because most people are like, where is that on the map? Do you guys still ride horses? Y'all understand how I feel a little bit, right? For some of you who are, is anybody up in Canada other than, okay, all right, yeah. Some people are like, is that part of North America? Yes, congratulations. You understand the globe. Most are Canadian. Okay, I love that. So you guys totally get it. Like they're always like, is it snow 24/7? Yes. I'm just gonna say yes. Yes. Snow 24/7. We've never seen the sun. Um, so you guys get it. But I like to say I grew up in Podunk, Montana. I grew up very poor. Like, yes, we live in igloos, but I grew up very poor. Like we couldn't even afford the double O. That's how poor we were. We would just po. Okay. And it wasn't until somebody knocked on our trailer door one day that it really opened up my family's eyes to the possibility of direct sales. And this is where the bug got me. You see, I was in my mid to late teens, and I had watched my dad, who was a pastor at a church, but doing construction, digging ditches, taking any side job he could throughout the week and on the weekends. My mom was working at the hospital as an administrator. She was washing dishes at Pizza Hut at night and cleaning the restaurant there. My brother and I were off working at the age of 10. I was working in the local motel and a restaurant. Like it was all hands on deck back then. Child labor laws would not approve. But that's just the reality I grew up in. And somebody knocked on our door, and it just so happens it was a night that my mom was to her end of herself, and she was looking for an answer that could be the answer to the situation. And I learned by watching her, because she didn't have a ton of time, I learned by watching her I watched her step out of being just a quiet pastor's wife that worked at the hospital, pushing paper around and doing dishes in the back. I watched her go from that to stepping into who God created her to be. And when that happened, I watched something magical because I watched her start to take ownership of her time that she had to fill a bucket that was empty. And that was our financial bucket. I watched her take the small 15 to 20 increments of time that she would have when she would walk into the door to change out of her hospital clothes, to go put on her Pizza Hut uniform, make a couple of calls. And that was before this was a thing. Like, she would have the long extension. Anybody else have like the long stretchy cord at their house? Yeah, that was in the trailer kitchen, and it would go down the hall and under the door, and the doors had like a good 5-inch gap. And she would be changing her clothes, making phone calls, trying to change the trajectory of our lives as a family, because she was tired of there being more month than money. She was tired of seeing all of us work to the bone. And she decided that she had to take ownership of what she said yes to and what she said no to. And that taught me such a key lesson, that when I came into the business, I came into it with the understanding of, yes, my time is my own, but understanding a couple of key fundamentals. So I love the fact that you guys wrote down your goals, because we do talk about that all the time. We say, hey, write down, what are your goals this month? Let's write them down. But sometimes we don't write down the daily tasks that we have to do. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we plan it out and we'll say, okay, if we're going Ruby, I'm going to have to do 3 host and posts every single day. I'm going to have to do 5 reach outs. I'm going to have to at least contact so many people. Sometimes we'll take it that far, but let me ask you this question. How many of you have a daily task list of what you need to do to achieve your goals this month? If you have that, I want you to type a 2 in the chat for me. Type a two in the chat if you have a daily task list. Now, if you don't have a daily task list, that's fine. But I'm trying to draw out the steps of what you need to have. The next thing that you need to have, after you understand what your goals are and you write them down, then you have your task list and you write them down. Can anybody guess what the next step is? Like, there's really no wrong answer, but there is a right answer. Anybody want to be brave and type something in there? Doing the tasks. Yes, you've got to take action. And this is where a lot of times, okay, I'm going to call us out. I'm sorry to step on toes. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. Because here's the thing. You have to understand, if you do not prioritize, your goals are negotiable. And if your goals are negotiable, you will not achieve them. Bottom line. And so I love, Jillian, that you said prioritize. Prioritize is key. You have to know, what on a monthly basis do we need to say yes to? What on a monthly basis do we need to say no to? Because I learned early on, whatever I say yes to, it meant that I was going to say no to something else. And I had to look at my list and understand what I was saying no to. Was I saying no to my own goal? Was I saying no to the things that were really important to me? I so desperately wanted to be the first person in my family never to go bankrupt. Like, think of that. As a teenager, I understood that I had the option, because I watched my brother at 22 years old go into bankruptcy. I watched my parents go into bankruptcy. I have lived a legacy of bankruptcy. And I knew in my teens that was not going to be my legacy. I didn't care what I had to do. And so when I started my business in my early 20s, I was working 3 jobs. I was working 3 jobs, trying to figure out where to fit in the nooks and crannies, how to start a direct sales company and how to go door to door. Because I knew that this could be the vehicle, but I knew that I needed to prioritize. So what did it look like? It meant that I said no to going out with the girls. You guys, I was 22 and 23 years old. But my purpose for what I wanted for myself and what I wanted for a future family was so big that I knew so instinctively what I was willing to say no to in the then for later. And so, not just prioritizing, but really becoming crystal clear. Do you need to put the kids to bed every single night? Can the husband do it one night? Do you need, maybe it's pizza one night? Like maybe it is making sure that you go and hide in the bathroom. One of my best friends who was in the same situation as me, she used to go hide from her 3 and 2-year-old sons in the bathroom, closing the door while they were screaming and banging on it while she made phone calls, building her business, because she wanted to get out of the house that was in drug row, because she was worried of the fact that they were eventually going to go out in the yard when she wasn't with them and find a needle. Like her why was big enough to get out of there. And so she sacrificed a little bit. And these weren't long calls. These were like 10-minute calls, but she would promise herself that she would make sure that she would run into the bathroom, close and lock the door and lock them out and make phone calls while her kids would be screaming. And sometimes I'd be like, Natalie, are the boys okay? And she'd be like, I've got 2 more minutes. They're going to be fine for 2 more minutes. I've just got to make one more call, because she so desperately wanted out of her situation. And so I think when you get to the point where you become so acutely aware of what you need to get out of, the dedication almost becomes easier. The dedication becomes hard, though, when we don't visualize what could potentially be in front of us, as well as when we don't understand the actions that it's going to take. And sometimes we leave that for the last minute. So I love the question of like, man, how do you become dedicated? You start to understand your purpose. You understand what your goals are. You get really crystal clear on them. And then you start talking about them so that you don't lose sight of them. Because the second you lose sight of what that goal is, we will talk ourselves out of it. We will start excusing ourselves out of it. Oh, I'm not as good as, I mean, Jillian's so pretty. She's probably got a great following. Shannon, I mean, look at her. She's an impeccable leader. Like, I can't be, like, we'll start talking. This isn't for me. I mean, Jessica, of course, Jessica's going to be successful. Like, of course she is. I can't be as successful as her. And we'll start downplaying, and then our time evaporates. And then we go into, I'm doing all the things. I just don't have time to follow up. Let me tell you something. When your why becomes so big, it will fuel your passion. It will fuel your prioritization, and you will figure it out. You will figure it out. So the other question was, oh, I love, I just said that. I didn't even scroll down. So what do you do when you feel like you're stuck? What are the things that you do when you feel like you're stuck? You become coachable. If you feel like you're stuck, you need to be having conversations, maybe with your upline, your sideline partners. You need to start looking at, hey, can you talk to me? I need to go over my verbiage to make sure I'm coming off right. Can you look at my posts? Maybe it doesn't sound like me. You've got to become coachable and understand that that is just iron sharpening iron. You've got to know, like, you have to be adaptable to certain things, and that means being coachable. And so if you feel like you're stuck and you're doing all the things right, or you're doing all the things, but you're not getting anything back. I just had a conversation with somebody earlier, and I said, listen, I'm reading your posts right now. I'm listening to what you're telling me. Is this how you sound? And she said, yeah. And I said, girl, I'm just like, how brutally honest can I be? And she said, oh, you can be totally honest. And I said, great. You have no energy around this. Like, you sound like, hey guys, I have this thing if you want to look at it. Like, that's really how it came across. And I was like, listen, People are drawn to energy more than anything. Like, how many of you ever gone to a party and you've walked in and you see like the girl or the guy over on the side, and you can just tell like they're in a bad mood. Like you're like, oh, oh, right? You just want to hide. Or you go around the corner and you see the group and they're like a couple of people are gathered around, they're cackling and laughing, they're like, and they have joy, and you're like, you're trying to like nuzzle your way in. You're like, I want to know what they're laughing and cackling about, right? Because people are drawn naturally to energy. They can see it in your posts. They can see it when you DM them. They can tell when you're talking to them. Are you excited about it? Because here's the thing. If you're not excited about it, you're not going to get anywhere. Or if you're treating it as, and I'm sorry to be crass, I don't mean to be crass, but if you are treating them as a notch on your headboard, let me just say, people know. If you're throwing up a host and post, and the next thing you know, they're like, oh my goodness, like this product looks incredible. Could you tell me a little bit more about it? And the next reply is always, I'll DM you information, and then they ghost you. You might want to get a little bit more information from them first. Like, I was always big on asking more questions. Like, hey, slide into my DMs and talk to me a little bit about what you're struggling with. Oh yeah, I had that same problem too. Like, what else did you find was an issue? What have you tried before? Sometimes we try to go right for the kill versus getting more information. And this is the thing. This is a people business. This is a people business. People are following you because they feel connected to you. People are going to trust you because they feel connected to you. People who see a host and post, they see that on their friend's page and they're like, oh, our friend is posting about, like, yeah, I feel connected, that I want more information, but they don't want to be bamboozled. And so maybe the sharpening is, are you coming off authentic if you're doing all the things? So you've got to stay in check. You've got to make sure that your energy is in the right place. And here's the other thing, you guys, listen, we all know when we're in a bad mood. Ladies, we know when we're in a bad mood, right? Like, come on, it's no secret. If you're in your teens, you don't know. But if you are in your 20s, you know when you're in a bad mood. You know when you have energy. You know when you feel good about something. You know when it's being natural and authentic. Always make sure that when you are responding to somebody, you are in the right headspace. Because if you are not, they will know. Kind of like that meme, like, how will they know? They're going to know. They always know. Listen, they always know. So you have to make sure that you are in the right headspace. And sometimes that means like throwing on a quick, for me back in the day, it was like popping a CD in. You guys don't have that now. We have like, Amazon Music and Prime and all that. You need to make sure you are in the right headspace. The next thing is, how do you elevate yourself? Okay. I love this question, and I'm going to tell you guys my old coaching techniques, okay? When I got on the corporate side, even before I was on the corporate side, I used to do this. Now, and I'm going to be 1000% transparent. When I went back in 2020 into the field, I fell into bad habits, and I had to take myself back to coaching class to myself, because even though I coached on it for years, it's hard to do. Like, it's hard to do. I'm just calling it out. It's easy, and yet it's hard, right? Because when I was home, I was like, well, I got to put in some laundry, and I need to get dinner out, and I should probably be a good wife and like shower and shave my legs for the first time in a month, right? Like silly things like that, right? And yet my work wasn't getting done. Okay. So I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. But here's the thing that I did my entire coaching career, as well as about 6 weeks into going back into the field in 2018. If you want to elevate yourself and you really want to know where you're doing your work, you've written down your goals. Okay. You have put together what you need to do on a daily basis. Okay. We talked about the fact that then you need to take action and you need to know, is your goal negotiable? What are you going to say yes and no to? And then if you really want to understand what you are doing on a day-to-day in business, I'm going to tell you, every single person that I ever coached on the corporate side, if I was coaching you, first and foremost, you had to sign a contract with me. The contract was basically, hey, listen, we're going to coach. I'll give you about 3 sessions, and then I'm going to see if this is working for me as the coach. Because I could tell if somebody was actually doing the work. And here's how I could tell. I made everybody clock in and clock out of their working hours and what they were doing for 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks. You had to keep a note of where you were spending your time and what you were doing during that time. And here's what you will always learn. And I took myself, like I said, I took myself to school in 2018. I had to go back because I realized I was falling into bad habits. And I was like, where is my time going? I feel like I'm working all day, every day. I'm working all day, every day. All I do is work. All my husband sees is this, but I wasn't getting anywhere. And I was like, hold up. What am I doing? Here's what I was doing. And I'm just going to call myself out. And if you guys have fallen into this pattern, please don't make me feel like the only person. But I was like, I'm going to go find a post that sounds like me. I would scroll. And then after I was done scrolling, well, then I had to tweak the post. I mean, because it was almost like me, but it really wasn't me. And then like 3 hours later, after I bought some shoes, a dress, and like a new kitchen gadget off of Instagram, I was still working on the same post. I seriously, when I went back to the habits of what I need to do, and I started clocking in and out for myself and writing all the things down. And I will tell you, every single person I ever coached, they had to do this too. I used to have people call me within 24 hours crying, because the other part of the deal was whatever your habit you reveal to yourself over the 2 weeks, you can't change it. You had to stay doing the bad habits. And everybody hated it. I had one girl like sobbing, crying. She was like, I am wasting so much time. You're going to make me waste time for 2 weeks. And I said, well, listen, you've already wasted a year of your time doing bad things. 2 more weeks won't kill you. I want you to get so good and mad at yourself for wasting time. And this girl had 4 kids. And she was like, I don't have time to waste, Meredith. She was like, I have 4 kids. I need to be making money. And I was like, I want you to get good and mad at yourself. Because she needed to learn the lesson of you have paved your path. And the only way you're going to get out of that is if you become acutely aware of it. And so I recommend, if you really want to go to that next level, if you want to hold yourself accountable, understand what those goals are, understand what steps you need to take on a daily basis, understand what you're going to say yes and no to and what's negotiable, and then put it to the test. Because here's the thing, each and every single one of you, you are the CEO of your business. Shannon J does not get information before you guys get the information. And listen, I'm just going to call it out. Some of y'all probably, like I did, I'm going to call myself out too. I was like, hey, where's the Zoom info? And Shannon was like, I've sent it to you twice. Right? And I was like, oh, I don't need to be that person. Like, I know where to go to self-serve. But sometimes, even myself, I get so complacent with going where I can get a quick answer versus going and doing for myself. And I will tell you something, as a CEO of you, I want to ask you guys a question and be honest. If you had you as an employee, you got to ask yourself, what would the evaluation look like? Because you guys know what you do on a daily. I have to ask myself that. Like, even though I report to John Akala, I still hold myself accountable to where if I was the CEO, would I be happy with my performance? And when I was in the field, I had to make sure that I held myself accountable to that. And I will tell you, I did an evaluation on myself in the field all the time, all the time. I would ask my teammates, hey, where can I serve you better? Where can I serve you better? A simple, how can I support you better? What can I do for you? I had to ask myself though, off of my timesheet, how can I serve my business better? Was I doing all of the follow-ups that I needed to be doing? Was I actually doing the events that I needed to do? Was I spending too much time building a training versus picking up the phone or posting? So I just encourage each of you, because this is your business. And again, you guys, I'm sharing with you what I did. But in 2018, when I went back into the field, I went back in, and I remember I told my sponsor, I was like, I came out of corporate, and they were like, oh my gosh, you're going to blow it up. And I was like, hey, I don't want that pressure. I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to do my thing. Right. I was laying the groundwork for excuse after excuse after excuse. And I was like, I'm just going to do my thing. I just want to, take it easy and take it slow. And about 6 weeks in, we were coming up on the deadline of the annual top leader trip. And I was like, in my mind, I may or may not have said a bad word, but I was like, forget that. I'm going for it. Like, I am good enough to make this happen. And I called my upline leader and I was like, I'm going to do this. And she was like, you ain't got time. And I was like, watch this. You guys, I will tell you, I put myself on a routine. I started doing the things I didn't want to do, because here's the thing. If you want a miracle to happen, it's on the other side of the work you typically aren't doing. And I had to acknowledge that in myself. And I had to go, you know what? I am good enough to do it. Like, I wanted the shiny necklace. Like, this was one of the rewards that I got for, like, I wanted the things that were out there, and I set them as goals, and I made a decision. And I will tell you, it was a lot of work. It was 4.5 months of basically just solid focus on one thing, so hyper focused on it. It was a daily grind. But here's what happened from it. I created so much momentum from those few months, the few months of hurt. I created so much momentum that I quickly wound up growing a team internationally of over 5,000 people in under a year. Because my team, as they came in, saw the work that I was doing. And even though I didn't expect them to work at my level, it drove them to do at least a 10th to 25% of my level. And you guys, I was mass enrolling. I was doing no less than 17 to 18 events every single month. I was doing no less than at least 50 to 60 reach outs through social media of some type, through some channel. Like, I became so hyper focused because I realized that my miracle was on the other side, and I was good enough to do the work. So when you sit there and you go, I'm doing all the things, I'm going to push back and say, make sure that you're getting the coaching. And I had to have people help me. Even though I've done this for decades, I still had to have people come in, and I would say, hey, listen to my verbiage. Is it okay? Hey, listen to how I'm onboarding something. Listen how I'm talking to somebody. Look at this post. Is that okay? I still was asking to be adaptable to the surroundings of what was happening, because I still wanted to be me. I still wanted to make sure that I was coming off authentic and with energy. And I remember the same girls that I gave up lunches with in my early 20s, who were the ones who were like, oh, you're doing one of those little side businesses. And I was like, I'm going to love you where you're at, but I'm going to love you away from me for now. They were the ones who came running back when I went back into the field. So I just want to encourage you guys, like, how hyper-focused are you? Because some of you had some amazing goals. Like, you guys are saying, like, I'm going for Ruby and I'm only 6 weeks in. Okay. Have you put the action steps in place of what you need to do every single day? Have you made a decision? Like set an alarm. You guys, I will also tell you one of the things that I did is I never worked more than 45 minutes in one stint ever, ever. 45 minutes. Because at the end of 45 minutes, I needed a break. I needed to go stand up. I needed to walk around. I needed to get energy. I needed to change my position. I needed to change my mindset. I needed to shake it off, whatever I needed to do. I would work 45 minutes, set 45-minute stints. I would set a timer on my phone. And unless I was in a conversation, it was 45 minutes. I made sure that I did at least 6 of those every single day. But I became so hyper focused during that time that I wasn't doing this all day, every day. I still had more things to do and give to other people. So I just want to encourage you guys, like, get a system around you. It doesn't have to be my system. It doesn't have to be, and don't look for a perfect system, but figure something out. Identify the areas where you're wasting time. That will serve you so well. Are you hopping on a call with a sideline partner to touch base with them, or you're upline, but it turns into a griping session? I mean, there's another word for it, but I don't say that. Like, does it? You need to call yourself out. You need to call yourself out on if you're telling yourself, oh, I'm going for Ruby. If I get there, I get there. No, it needs to be non-negotiable. But the only way things become non-negotiable is if you realize what you're trying to get out of. I realized for me when I started this channel that I had a very special circumstance watching my mom go through what she went through. And even though I was the girl who grew up in Podunk, Montana in a trailer, moving around 30 times by the time I was 20, without a college diploma, without a high school diploma, I made it through 4th grade. I don't even know how, by the grace of God. Wound up getting a GED. I had to realize that there were more people out there like me who needed to hear that it doesn't matter your circumstance. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your ethnicity. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter your age. The only thing that matters is your willingness to be coachable, your will. And if you have grit and determination to understand that you are worth it, with that, you can become unstoppable. There were more bumps in the road. More things came up. I mean, I thought I was going to have a different life than what I have now. I thought my life was going to be painted with in a different brush stroke. But here's the thing. My life has turned out so much better because I took a chance on believing in what he set before me and said, I can do it. I don't call the qualified, I'll qualify the called. As long as you understand your purpose and you're passionate about your purpose, I'll anoint you and appoint you to power and position. But you're going to have to do the work. I want to leave you guys with this last thing. I don't know if you've ever heard the story of the man who was in a flood on his house. But there's this famous story about this man who is, his house was flooding and he climbed up on the roof, and some guys came by and they were like, hey, we've got a boat, hop on in. He was like, no, I'm praying. God's going to save me. As the water got higher and higher and it started to come up on the roof and he climbed up on the chimney, a helicopter came by and they were like, hey, here's the ladder, jump on. We'll save you. And he said, no. I'm praying. God's got me. A little bit later, as he's barely keeping his head above, he sees this raft kind of drift by with an oar in it. And he's thinking, maybe I should jump it. No, I'm praying. God will save me. And he dies and he gets to heaven and he sees Jesus and he's like, God, like, dude, I was praying. You didn't save me. And Jesus is like, dude, I sent you a boat, a helicopter, and a raft. My raft came didn't matter my circumstance. And I decided to get in it. It didn't mean that I didn't have to row my own boat. And sometimes the waves came up and flipped me over. But I hope that you guys become so determined with the vehicle that you've been given to get to your destination that you understand that if you choose to, you can have the strength to flip the boat back over, crawl back up in it, drenched wet, and start rowing again. You're going to face waves. You're going to face challenges. You're going to have things come up against you. You're going to have all of that. But if you understand that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, because he's going to take care of the power and position, then I'm going to encourage you to find your passion and your purpose and dive into that and come up with your plans to achieve the goals that only you can achieve, because you can achieve it. So I hope I answered the questions. That's everything I have on here, Miss Shannon. And I'm happy to answer anything else anybody has if you would like.
Thank you so much, Meredith. That was amazing. Very inspirational. And yeah, if anybody has questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat.
I'm an open book and I don't bite. I mean, I might make you like write your time out for 2 weeks.
I like how you said you make people do things that they don't like doing. For like, that's fantastic. I love that.
It's
I'd be
hard.
scared to have you as a coach.
Oh, well, hey, listen, I will tell you, 6 of my girls that I coached to the top of the company, I fired each one of them before 3 calls the first time. And one of them I fired
Perfect.
twice. So there you go. Tough love, you know?
Yeah,
The joke always
that
was,
is
if Meredith
awesome.
hasn't hung up on you yet, does she really care? I'm much nicer now. I have evolved.
That's great. No, that's sometimes you need the tough love.
I
Well,
do.
if I don't think anyone's got any questions in the chat yet. Anyone have anything they want to ask
I
Meredith?
think Shannon's like, everybody's going to be writing out their time card for 2.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to spend with us. It means a lot. You know, this is a great team, and we love hearing from people that have been in the field and that are working to make our lives better as distributors in the field. So thank you so much for all that you do. And yeah, I appreciate it, and we all appreciate having you.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you so much for being abundant and opening up the call. Listen, you guys, I'm going to just share, and I want you guys to drop some love for your leader here. I reached out and I said, hey, do you want a one-on-one or a team call? And Shannon was like so quick to reply. And she was just like, I want a team call. Like, I want this for my team. And, you know, there's something to be said about an abundant heart in a leader, because she could have taken the call for herself and just said, hey, I'm going to get the information. I'll share what I want to share. But she didn't. She was like, I want every single person to be on and to answer their questions and to share with everybody. And so you guys, like, drop a heart in the chat for Miss Shannon J. We love you. I hope you feel better soon. And again, it is not lost on me, not even a little, that opening up your team to my voice is something very unique and special. And I am honestly humbled by it. So thank you guys for listening tonight, for me being able to share my story a little bit. And, you know, we are here to make sure that you guys have everything that you need to be successful. We don't nail it all the time. Okay. We don't. But we try our darndest to make sure you guys have everything you need to be as successful as you choose to be. So I just pray, my prayer is that you choose to be non-negotiable with your goals and your vision. So with
Thank you
that,
so much, Meredith. Thank you.
thank you guys. Have a blessed night.
You too.